Good evening, everybody. We're in Parashat Chayey dealing with the first half. Our parasha is divided into two parts. The first one dealing with the burial of Sarah and the purchasing of Me'arat HaMachpelah. And the second half of the parsha dealing with the Shidduch, with the Eliezer, going to bring a kala for Yitzchak, and we'll discuss this time the first half of the parsha. Parsha is divided into very two clear parts. We don't have a lot of issues as we had Bereshit, Noach, Lech Lecha, and Vayera. From now on, we have פחות או יותר פרשות which are divided into several topics, several distinct topic, and I think that our parasha is the first one dealing with them. So let's start with the first opening half of the parasha. We have the burial of Sarah, and to tell you the truth, without speaking about the ma'alot of Sarah, Eshet Chayil, and all the eulogizes that Avraham gives and Chazal give to Sarah, we have to admit that it's surprising that the Torah speaks at all about the death of Sarah, because we don't find anything written about the death of Leah, none at all. We don't find anything written about Rachel's death because of Rachel. We just we know it's mentioned just to tell us two things: why that she was buried in Beit Lechem, okay, and the whole story that she died in her birth, whatever, and she was buried in the middle of the road. And secondly, giving birth to Binyamin. But without these two options, these two facts, we wouldn't know anything about Rachel's death. Let's go on. Rivka, no mentioning of the burial of Rivka, of the death of Rivka. It's just Chazal, when Yaakov comes back to fulfill his neder in Beit El, that Chazal sees that Vatamo Dvora meineket Rivka, so Chazal attach Dvora to her hostess, okay, or employer. Rivka, and Chazal says that even Rivka died, okay, but it's just stressing out to show you that without all the explanation of Chazal, you wouldn't think that you wouldn't know anything about Rivka. So again, we don't see Rivka's death. We don't see anything, not in Chazal, even about Leah's death. And we see Rachel just because of two supplemented topics, not because of the main topic, her death. So why do we have so many psukim dealing with the death of Sarah? I didn't compare, but I think that Rachel is mentioned in the Torah not less than Sarah. Is both of them are very main in their houses, but I wouldn't say that Sarah is the main one, and therefore the Torah describes her more than Rachel. So the question stays, and I think that it leads us to a big question about the first half that we're speaking about, the first half of the parasha. What is the main topic of the first half? If I would ask you to describe the main half, would you describe it like the burial of Sarah or the death of Sarah? Chayey Sarah, or the death of Sarah, means Sagi Nahor, and you say that Avraham looks for a place to bury Sarah, therefore he needs to buy Chelkat Kever, etc. Or that the main goal of the parasha, the main topic of the first half of the parasha, is the purchase of Me'arat HaMachpelah. And the burial or the death of Sarah is just the background of the story, and it enables you to understand why did Abraham need to buy Chelkat Kever, etc. Okay, it was the first time that he had to buy Chelkat Kever because he had a dead person in front of him, but it's not the main thing. Maybe the buying the מערת המכפלה is the main issue. So let's go how we can decide which is the main goal. Let's look in the Torah itself. לשון, the Torah says in פרק כ"ג פסוק י"ז and י"ח, sorry that it's not in front of you, ויקום שדה עפרון אשר במכפלה, אוקיי? אשר לפני ממרא, השדה והמערה אשר בו, וכל העץ אשר בשדה, אשר בכל גבולו סביב. So it's mamash, you see, like a judicial map. Okay, if I lived like 3,000 years ago and I had to write a contract and I didn't have an exact taboo or something written exactly, I would describe the trees, okay, and it's ממש what the Torah describes, השדה והמערה וכל העץ אשר בו, לאברהם למקנה לעיני בני חת בכל באר שער עירו. So here we see the kinyan, the acquaintance, okay, of the שדה. Then the Torah adds, ואחרי כן, קבר אברהם את שרה אשתו. So later on, Abraham buried his wife, אין מערת שדה המכפלה על פני ממרא, היא חברון בארץ כנען. So we have the two sides. I aroused the question, what is the main part of the first half? And I cannot answer because the Torah concludes with two endings. The Torah ends with the kinyan, vayakum sde Efron, and the Torah ends with a burial. Okay, but then after Pasuk Yutet, after the Torah finished with the two endings, the Torah writes in Pasuk Kaf again, Vayakom השדה והמערה אשר בו לאברהם לאחוזת קבר מאת בני חת. And it's very superfluous because we've written before. I will compare now Pasuk Yud and Yud to Pasuk Kaf. Listen to the two psukim. The first mentioning of the kinyan, ויקום שדה עפרון אשר במכפלה אשר לפני ממרא, and the second time in פסוק כ', ויקום. השדה והמערה אשר בו, written in both places, either in פסוק י"ז and פסוק כ'. פסוק י"ז describes judicially, וכל העץ אשר בשדה אשר בכל גבולו סביב, exactly to give you the exact point and the exact boundaries of the שדה, okay? But then it's written at the end, לאברהם למקנה לעיני בני חת בכל שער עירו, and in פסוק כ', לאברהם לאחוזת קבר מאת בני חת. Okay, so we see that we have some subtle differences. The פסוקים י"ז and י"ח are more detailed, are more judicial. The Torah gives you a very detailed description of the Sadeh, whereas in Pasuk Kaf, the Torah gives you a very short description. But why do you need a repetition? Okay? The Torah ended again with the kinyan, then the Torah ended with the burial. Why does the Torah have to go back to the kinyan? And it's very clear that with this ending of Pasuk Kaf, we can now decide what is the main goal of the Torah in the first half of the parasha. Okay? The Torah says that the whole story of Sarah was just the background. It was just supplemented to the main goal of the first kinyan of Avraham in Eretz Canaan. He bought the Sdei Machpelah, and the whole situation of Sarah's burial, death, whatever, was just the background. That's why we can understand why the Torah lengthens in the burial of Sarah, unlike Rachel, unlike Leah, unlike Rivka, because, as we said, we're not interested in the stories of the death. We don't write anything about it. We do write about the first kinyan, okay, of the Avraham Avinu. That's Rashbam, I'll tell you what Rashbam reads. אף על פי שבשאר נשים לא נתפרשו ימי חייהם, בשרה הוא צריך לפרש בשביל שהוא צריך להזכיר מיתתה, בשביל קניין המערה. So Rashbam explicitly understands that the whole, not only the story of her death, but even the mentioning of how many years she lived, etc., all comes just to strengthen, to show the Kinyat HaMe'ara. And then we have to understand, okay, so we have a conclusion to our question, what's the main goal of the first half? Okay, the main goal is to, as we saw, the Torah repeats twice about the Kinyan, and the main goal is the Kinyan. Okay, now let's compare it to other Kinyanim in the Torah. When Yaakov comes back from Lavan, so he enters Shechem, Vayiken et chelkas tasadeh b'Shechem. Just one pasuk writes about Vayiken. Okay, and I don't know, but maybe he had a long, Masa Umatan, a negotiation about buying the Chelkat HaSadeh in Shechem, and even though the Torah doesn't write anything about it. David HaMelech, when he buys Mekom HaMikdash, okay, the end of Shmuel Bet, he has a whole story with Arvana Yevusi, and he meets, and there is a Makefa, and then he meets him with a sword, etc., etc. But then when he buys the Sadeh from Arvana Yevusi, how many psukim are written? Very, very few. Very few. Okay, unlike the whole story of Hebron, Me'arat HaMachpelah, negotiation here, there, why does the Torah have to deal with it so much time? Okay, what does the Torah want to stress out in the first buying of Avraham Avinu? So I would like to tell you something I've heard from Rabbi Yoni Grossman, Professor Jonathan Grossman. He probably writes it in his book. I've read it in a Shiur many years ago. And he understands that you have to, a lot of people have to tend to interpret the negotiation between Avraham Avinu and Efron like a real negotiation, how to make business. And it's very nice, that sometimes I think that we've done it in recent years. Sometimes you can look how when you make a negotiation, you know what you're strong and you don't want to expose your cards, okay? And Avraham Avinu does it. He wants to pay as less as possible. Let's say that he wants to pay as less as possible, and he doesn't want to say how much. And he tries not to reveal his cards. And he and Efron play from both sides without revealing the cards. And at the end of the day, they end very nicely. So we have, Torat HaMischakim, what we call, the how to make games. Okay, we can look at this parasha as Torat HaMischakim, but Yoni Grossman commented that from Torat HaMischakim's points of view, Avraham Avinu makes a big failure of Talmid Chochem, not a big merchant, okay? What does he say at the very beginning of his speech? גר ותושב אנוכי עמכם, תנו לי אחוזת קבר עמכם, ואקברה מתים מלפניי. So I have a dead person in front of me. Let's say that Chas v'Shalom, one of us has some niftar in his mishpoche, and he has to go to Chevra Kadisha, not to Efron. No, I don't know how far they are from each other, but you make a negotiation with them, and they know that you have somebody to bury, and they know that you're not going to wait because you're in Yerushalayim. Minhag HaMakom is not to wait. What is your space? Okay, how much negotiation can you make when it's very clear to the other side that you have to bury, and it has to be today, and the only karka is yours? Okay, nothing, and then they let you pay as much as they want. Okay, just because of governmental regulation, so you don't pay more than that. It used to be more than that, but you don't have any cholet, any ability to make anything. But Avraham says the wrong thing to say. He says, "Ger v'toshav anochi imachem." I'm weak. I'm not a part of the place. I have a dead. תנו לי אחוזת קבר ואקברה את מתי שמה. Okay? So it's very urgent for me. Why does he have to mention תנו לי אחוזת קבר עמכם? Okay? It's very weird why he mentions it. Okay? גר ותושב אנוכי עמכם. So first of all, he mentions that he's weak and you're strong. I have to bury my own dead. But תנו לי אחוזת קבר. What does he say but saying תנו לי? Does he mean a present? Maybe. Give me as a present? Maybe. But it's not, adequate that Avraham goes to the other side and says, okay, give me a present. He's not a peasant. He's not a beggar. He's not a poor person. Why should he come and ask for presents? So it's not clear that he asked for present, but the more simple opportunity is that Avraham suggests, תנו לי אחוזת קבר עמכם. He asked for, not buying, for permission. Just let me, תנו לי, let me, bury my own dead among you. Okay, I want one family to let me, I don't want to buy. The whole area will be yours after, and I just ask for permission. Okay, I want one family to enable Sarah to be buried among them, עמכם. Okay, that's why Avraham says, גר ותושב אנוכי עמכם. If you interpret this way, so it's very clear. Avraham says, I want a favor. It's not a favor of a beggar, okay? He doesn't ask for nothing, but just make me a favor. You have a lot of karka. I need just 2 square meters. Okay, let me bury Sarah among you. And it's very interesting how in English תנו לי אחוזת קבר is translated, because in some of the Targumim, it's give me a burial plot with you. Okay, that's a very מילולי, כן? Wordly translation. And some people translated it, sell me a burial site among you, which is far. It's not what he said. Okay, it's not literally speaking what he said. Nuli can be interpreted in 2 ways. Give me as a present or let me. Okay? And what did they understand? בני חטא אומרים לו, שמענו אדוני, נשיא אלוהים אתה בתוכנו, במבחר קברנו קבור את מתיך, איש ממנו את קברו לא יכלה ממך מקבור מתיך. So it's not, you don't have any mention that they want to give him for free. They just for free give him permission. Okay? Because for us it's a kavod. You are נשיא אלוהים אתה בתוכנו. Maybe you know that being attached to Avraham will make the value of the karka more. Okay, now that we know that Avraham Avinu, the Nesi Elokim, buried his own wife, he's like, he's a celebrity that lives in the area, so the whole karka will be expensive. Okay, but they don't. Okay, that they have an intimate relation with Avraham. Okay, and they understand במבחר קברנו. Okay, it's our graves, not yours. You don't buy it. You have just a permission. So I understand that he wants just a permission. Okay, and therefore they mentioned. Okay, what do they say at the end? איש ממנו את קברו לא יכלה ממך מקבור מתיך. Okay, nobody would disturb you from the permission. Okay. But then, Avraham Avinu, וישתחו אברהם לפני עם הארץ, he ends the first half of his negotiation, and then he says, no, I want to speak, שמעוני ופיגו לי בעפרון בן צוחר. I don't want to speak with you anymore, I want עפרון בן צוחר, וייתן לי, again he repeats, again, the dual meaning, as a present, or as a permission. But he says there, בכסף מלא יתננה לי בתוככם לאחוזת כבל, okay? And then he starts the second half of his speech, and then he starts a negotiation about the price, and they end with 400 שקל כסף עובר לסוחר. Why did Abraham make the ambiguity? Okay? Ambiguity? Ambiguity? How do you say דו משמעות? He used two meanings in וייתן לי.
Double
Okay?
meaning.
Pardon?
Double meaning.
Double meaning. Yeah, why did he use it? If he says explicitly, וייתן לי את מערת המכפלה בכסף מלא, why did he start with double meaning, okay? With opacity, okay? It's not clear when you start speaking, when he starts speaking, what he really means, okay?
Opaque. Opaque rather than opacity. We're not here to correct your English, Rabbi.
No. Of course you do. Opacity is not a good. Opacity means that it's not clear. I mean, not clear, obscure. Well, that he speaks with a lot of smudge. Okay. What do you say?
It's opaque.
Opaque.
It's opaque.
Opaque. Okay.
Which means that there is no opacity. It's unclear.
Yeah. So opaque. Okay. So Avraham, בכוונה, deliberately, wants to כאילו be given a favor or a present, but on the other hand, we see later that he didn't really mean it. He wants to pay עובר לסוחר, okay? So you can look on the double meaning in two ways. The first one is that he wants to come, like as I said, Avraham is a good merchant, and he wants to come from an underdog point of starting the negotiation. He wants to be the weak person. You are a favor of me. You are my friend. Okay, he gives him the hug. You're actually, okay, you are a friend of mine. That's why he says, "Ger v'toshav anochi imachem," and then he depicts as if it's not a kinyan, it's just, a favor, you give me a permission, and then for you it's a kavod, they like the kavod, and later on he'll say, no, I want I want to buy it. So he wants to, at the beginning, he wants to be a friend of them. He wants to be a part of them. And that's why, because of that, they'll agree. And then once they agree, הוא חושב כאילו, that it won't be just, מסחרי, it won't be just a merchandising, it will be more a favor. And that's why the price would be lower. Let's say that you want to sell your house. So somebody comes and he says, we're second cousins. Okay, what can you do after second cousins? You won't give him the best price. Afterwards, you'll feel uncomfortable because he's a friend of you or a relative of yours. So the same thing happens here. Avraham Avinu starts from a merchant point of view. He wants to say that we're friends, that ger v'toshav, that you are the strong person, I'm the weaker, and therefore he wants to make sure that it's being given to me. Okay? After it's been given to me, then he speaks with Efron. Then he has a negotiation about the price, but it comes from the vadaut, the certainty that it will be mine, and therefore the price will be lower. That's one point of view. But the second point of view that is that once I give you two options and I say, you would think that I mean A, but I mean B. I stress out the negating of option A. Okay, it's not that I just choose the option B, it's stressing out the negation of Option A. When Avraham Avinu does the last deed of Avraham Avinu's life, or maybe not the last was to find a wife for his son, but the is Avraham Zaken, okay, Sarah Zkena, Avraham is 137, and therefore he has to bury and buy a Chelkat Kever in Eretz Israel. Avraham Avinu can bequeath to his kids that I want to be a part of the local population. I want to be a friend of them. I want to be a part of them. But Avraham Avinu gives it as a first option. But then he negates it and he says, not as you understand before. I'm not interested in a permission to bury my dead. I want to buy it as mine. I want it to be mine. I don't want to be a part being buried in your chilka. What does Avraham Avinu say by that? That be'emet, for my kids, you'll inherit my last order, or almost last order, that you would not be among the Goyei Haaretz. Okay, and then we have many times a repetition in Shmot Kaf Daled, in Shmot Lamed Daled, in Dvarim Kaf. Many times the Torah repeats, גויי הארץ, you'll enter ארץ ישראל, ביתך לא תיתן לבנם, וביתם לא תיקח לבנך. And then the Torah speaks about the fear that זנות and avodah zarah, and so on. But it all starts from Avraham Avinu, that he makes a separation. And the best separation, okay, is, as Rav Hutner used to say, that the Gemara says that Avdala of Motzei Shabbat is in Chonen Da'at. Okay, we know that we say, אתה חונן אדם דעת, אתה חוננתנו, כן, וחוננו מאיתך חוכמה בינה ודעת. So the Gemara asks, why did they why did they choose, Chazal chose to put Avdala in Chonen Da'at? And then the Gemara says something very nice, im en da'at Avdala minayin. Okay, if you don't have brain, how would you have to separate? And Rav Hutner has a beautiful piece on it, that he explains that the real possibility to differentiate comes just from being similar. Okay, a kid thinks, a baby thinks that all the world is similar. He smiles to everybody. He loves everybody. But then he learns, when he gets mature, to differentiate himself from his mother, himself from the world, by just because of the compartment and loving all, he knows how to separate himself. And ידיעה, meaning חיבור, okay? אתה חונן אדם דעת. דעת is a חיבור to everything. Just after the חיבור, you know how to differentiate, okay? You learn about what העולם, גויים, בני חטא, the local population, etc. Then you say, no, I'm not one of you. That's what Avraham Avinu exactly did. At the beginning, he says something which is dual, with double meaning. You can understand that he wants a present. You can understand that he wants just a free permission. Okay, he's been given a free permission. But then Avraham says, no, I don't want you to be the leader. I don't want me or Sarah to be buried in your nachala. I want the nachala to be mine. I don't want to be settled down in Bnei Chet, among Bnei Chet. I want to be a friend of them. I want to be Nesi Elokim. I want a mutual honor, but I don't want to be a part of them. That's what Avraham Avinu tells. And then we can understand the significance of this, according to, let's say, Binyan Bet HaMikdash, because in Arvana, it's not the first time, so we don't have the separation, okay? Just David HaMelech finds the exact place. But here it's not just a place. He's saying that I'm not a part of you. That's it for this evening. לילה טוב, בשורות טובות.
לילה טוב, תודה.
כן,
לילה
לילה
טוב.
טוב.
תודה.